A very good evening to you. Thanks for joining us on the abridged version of the show tonight. I'm Yemi Adebayo. Of course, on the show tonight, we'll give you a slice of basketball. We'll be talking about the things happening in the NBA. We'll also talk about the Super Eagles of Nigeria, beam our searchlight on the Super Eagles camp, what's going on within the camp of the Super Eagles, talk about the players still being expected. We'll also talk about Lionel Messi. He's in the news. Of course, there's a club and country row brewing between Argentina and Paris Saint-Germain. So we'll talk about all of that even as we move on the show. At some point, I'm going to be joined by Kadi Ahmed, and we're going to take a look at all of these things that I've highlighted. We'll also take a look at the situation with Barcelona, and there has been talks about a possible return. Rumors, though, but it's circulating widely about a possible return of Lionel Messi and maybe bringing back Dani Alves on a free. So we'll see how all of that will pan out. And of course, the new managers also told his players to step up, try to fit in or move out. That's some of the things he said to his players when he held the first training session with the club. So we're going to start the show tonight differently. We're going to start with the NBA. Like I said, at some point, Kadi Ahmed will join us and we'll take a look at all of these things happening in the world of basketball. Let's take a look at some of the results of matches played. There you have it. It's on your screen. Milwaukee Bucks will feature prominently in some of the things we're going to discuss. Defeated the Philadelphia 76ers, 118 points to 109. You have the Atlanta Hawks lost to the Utah Jazz, 98 points to 110. Then, of course, the Portland Trail Blazers losing also to the Los Angeles Clippers, 109 to 117. We'll talk about all of these matches, the scenarios that played out, and of course, we'll look at games to be played on Thursday. But first, these are the results. Let's really take a post-game reaction from the Milwaukee Bucks. Case in point, Giannis Antetokounmpo talking after his side's victory in that game, in the game they played against the Philadelphia 76ers. Those are the pictures from that crucial encounter, which saw the Milwaukee Bucks returning to winning ways after a couple of losses. And as you can see on your screen, it was a good day for the Bucks. Let's take a post-game reaction and listen to what Giannis has to say. We'll come back for more on Sports Tonight. Milwaukee Bucks star Giannis Antetokounmpo bearing his mind, talking about doing whatever he needs to do to ensure his team wins, and of course showed a little bit of emotion in that game. At the end of the day, he was able to help his team cross the line, got 31 points in that game, and they were able to win. To take a look at this and more, Kadi Ahmed joins me now as we take you on a trip across the money-spinning world of sports. Greetings to you, Kadi. Thanks for finding out time to be with me on the show tonight.
Great to be back on the show as always.
All right, let's talk about the games. You listened to Giannis there. Let's talk about the three matches we were highlighted. But of course, I want you to start with the Milwaukee Bucks. After a trip to the White House, they came back energized, and now they're doing what they have to do. And a lot is resting on their shoulders. It will be interesting to see if they can go all the way to successfully defend their title. But first, I mean, they have to just keep the wins coming.
Well, they've struggled lately despite the win against the 76ers yesterday. They pulled away in the fourth quarter, and like you did allude, Giannis had 31 points. But in the last 3 days, they've played 3 games. They'll be having another one tonight, which means in 6 days, they have played 4 games. And they're missing some of their key players. Brook Lopez is out injured because of a back injury. Chris Middleton is in COVID protocol. Then Drew Holiday is also just coming back from being injured. Now having the responsibilities on the shoulders of Giannis Antetokounmpo. And should he get injured, they will have to struggle. And like you did ask, would they be able to actually go all the way to defend the title like they did successfully last season? Well, it remains to be seen. And the record have not been impressive, but it's still early days yet. and like they did against the Sixers yesterday, pulling away in the last quarter, if they can at least be consistent on that basis, then we can see them churning out good results. It's still a marathon because for the regular season, they'll be playing 82 games. Teams have just played about 9 and 10 games, depending on the conference that you belong to. It's still early days yet, and provided that they all stay healthy, with the roster and the personnel that they have right now, they look like they will make it out of the Eastern Conference into the playoffs. But can they defend the title successfully? Only time will tell.
Let's talk about the Atlanta Hawks as well. They were up against the Utah Jazz. Their losing streak continues. Talk about, you know, players coming together and giving a solid performance. Utah Jazz, 5 players into double figures. And at the end of the day, they were able to win that game. Donovan Mitchell also stepping up big time for his team. So your thoughts on that game as well?
Well, for the Atlanta Hawks, this is their fifth straight defeat for the first time since 2019. And with Trey Young, John Collins, Danilo Gallinari, well, you see sometimes these things happen. You go on a winning streak and sometimes on a losing streak. But from the core of the players that they had last season going into the present one, you would say, well, they would turn the corner. It's just one of those things that happen, especially at the early days of a new season. Then for the Utah Jazz, they've been consistent for the past 2, 3 seasons. And when you have players like Rudy Gobert, and of course the other guys will definitely turn up regularly. And when you have Jordan Clarkson, the sixth man of the year, I saw one of the skid moves he made yesterday, and it just kind of rolled back what we've seen of him from the days at the Cavs and currently with the Utah Jazz. I don't want to read too much meaning to the losing streak that the Atlanta Hawks are presently suffering. We know that at some point they will turn the corner, and if they keep working hard at it, definitely they will get back to winning ways. But for the Utah Jazz, they definitely are ruffling feathers. And in the Western Conference where they belong, which is quite competitive, when the bigger teams with big names finally start giving out impressive games, the Utah Jazz definitely will ruffle feathers. And we've seen them do that last season and the season before, and they look like they're going to do it again in the ongoing season.
All right, and of course the Clippers as well, getting the job done, beating the Portland Trail Blazers. Paul George shining like a million stars in that one as well. Of course, last season ended. In a way they didn't want. A lot of people were already, touting them for big things. It didn't happen, but now it seems they're beginning to get the wins together.
Well, the element that I call LA Clippers, they seem like they're going to deliver, but at some point they just flatter to deceive. But this time around, they've gone on a fifth straight victory, and it's thanks to PG-13, like we call Paul George, alongside Reggie Jackson and Nicola Batum. And against the Portland Trail Blazers, at some point one would have thought maybe the Portland Trail Blazers haven't gotten the better of LA Lakers over the weekend, that are going to rise and continue in that state. But the LA Clippers had other ideas. And we saw Paul George recording a 20-plus point for 4 games consecutively. And he's been consistent from his days at the Indiana Pacers and the Oklahoma City Thunder. We know that whenever he is on a run, he's quite unstoppable. But for the LA Clippers, are they going to be consistent with what they're doing right now? They started slow when the season began, and they've gone 5 games unbeaten right about now. They look like they will be in the playoffs, definitely, with a plethora of players that have got. And when Kawhi Leonard comes back from his injury, he's going to make a good team better. But are they going to finally win the Shield like everybody has expected them to? And hopefully give the more impressive LA Lakers, who have won 17 titles, a run for their money? Like I said earlier, with the Utah Jazz and the Atlanta Hawks game, only time will tell.
Yeah, only time will tell. Let's take a look at the fixtures for Thursday, and you take us through what to expect in some of these matches. Quite a number of games to be played. Let's just quickly take a look at NBA fixtures. Cleveland Cavaliers will be up against the Washington Wizards. Orlando Magic will take on Brooklyn Nets. Boston Celtics will take on Toronto Raptors. You have Houston Rockets. We take on the Detroit Pistons. New York Knicks will take on the Milwaukee Bucks. Chicago Bulls up against Dallas Mavericks, Memphis Grizzlies up against Charlotte Hornets. You have the New Orleans Pelicans up against Oklahoma City Thunder. San Antonio Sports will take on Sacramento Kings. Phoenix Suns will take on the Portland Trail Blazers. LA Lakers, that's Los Angeles, will take on Miami Heat. So what should we be expecting? I know there are quite a few standout games, but well, take your picks and tell us what to expect.
Okay, first, the Lakers versus the Heat, a repeat of the NBA Finals in year 2020. But for the Heat, they've suffered two defeats in the last three, while for the Lakers, they've won two in the last three. The Lakers, we know, are missing King James, who is out due to abdominal strain, but the Lakers are trying to cope in his absence. What the Lakers are trying to do is not to sweat James unnecessarily, save him for the latter part of the regular season and hopefully in the playoffs. Then for the Heat, they started like a house on fire, but lately they seem to have hit a bad patch. I want to see how the two PGs in Kyle Lowry and Russell Westbrook would fare with distribution and playmaking on the night. So that's one of the pick of the bunch for me. Then I want to look at how two rising point guards in Ja Morant and LaMelo Ball on the game between the Hornets and the Memphis Grizzlies. Ja Morant won the Rookie of the Year 2 seasons back, and it was LaMelo's turn last season. Both of them are fluid in their playmaking style, and they've been rooted as the next best thing in the NBA in terms of playmaking and the PG role. I want to see how the two of them would fare against each other. Then another game that I'm looking forward to is the one between the Detroit Pistons and the Houston Rockets. This is the game between the two top picks in the last NBA draft. Cade Cunningham for the Detroit Pistons was the number one top pick. Then we had Jalen Green. I want to see how the athleticism and the technicality of these players, respective, talking about Cade Cunningham and Jalen Green, would fare. The two of them have the best, or let me say the worst record when I'm talking about the team now. The Rockets have won just one game, as well as the Detroit as well, winning one game. For Cade Cunningham, he didn't come back into the season until October 30th. He's been struggling lately. While for Jalen Green, apart from the 30 points he had against the Celtics, he also has struggled. I want to see how the two of them would play against each other because of the hype that is surrounding the NBA and the rookies.
All right. Okay. We'll monitor those games. Of course, you'll be back next week to tell us how it all went down. Let's switch gears now and talk about the Super Eagles of Nigeria. As of now, only two players are still being expected. Victor Osimhen has joined. John Noble still being expected. Odioni Halo still being expected as well. But I want to ask you, Kade, the Super Eagles has let us down quite a number of times recently. But what are you expecting from these two matches? Some feel we have enough to qualify for the next round, but that next round is where the worry really is. So from this next two matches, what do you expect, and what should we be doing to prevent disaster if we get to the next round?
Well, I do not expect anything short of victories from the two games, but going by the recent happenings, especially against the Central African Republic, I was bullish on this platform, and I said it's games that the Super Eagles should be winning, even with their eyes closed. But sometimes football have other ideas. But with the crop of players that we've gotten, players and the compliments of Odion Igalo joining the team again, hopefully to partner with Osimhen. So in the final third, we shouldn't have any problems. The defenders basically just need to be on high alert to avoid any surprises, and the midfielders stringing passes to the forward, aiming at getting goals. On paper, these are victories we should be getting against Liberia and Cape Verde. And what happened recently should teach the lads, talking about the boys, some lesson so they do not get complacent and get the job done towards the final rounds of qualifiers for the 2022 World Cup.
A lot of people have questioned the hunger, the desire in this team. If you talk about the quality of the team, it divides opinion. Some will say they're average players. Some will say, yeah, they're good. It divides opinion. But what everybody seems to agree upon is the hunger, the lack of creativity, and in all departments, the hunger. I mean, you remember how Joe Aribo came into the team, played against Brazil, but I can't remember any other time he played to that level. I'm not singling out Joe Aribo. I'm just using that as an example to talk about what's been happening. It looks like some players know they're going to play no matter what happens. There's no desire, no hunger. And sometimes you want to blame the coach, but then you look at the players as well and like, what exactly is going on here?
Well, the buck stops at the table of the coach, and to get the team to be more competitive, it's about the ability of the coach to think out the lads and make them fight for shirts, such that when they face teams, they put up their best. And we are not seeing the games where it's all about lethargy and it's about lackluster performance. Yes, I'll quite agree with you regarding that because we've not seen them bring some fire, basically. And the game against Central African Republic, we should have put that game to rest early on. But we just felt, okay, this is CIAR. We can just do maybe do the needful. But they were taken by surprise, especially at the latter part of the game. So Onga might be lucky now for some time, but it depends on how Genutro can tinker the lads to getting them to be ever ready. Because if you can do that against CAR and Liberia, how will you do it against, let's say, the top 5 teams like Senegal, like Egypt, or even Cameroon, who are arch rivals with us? So we need to be bringing our best game, our best foot forward against even lesser oppositions if we want to be feared across the continent. Yes, we might still be one of the top teams, but that hunger has been lacking for some time. And I think Ganotro should find a way around it. If not, bench the top players who think that come what may, they will get playing time and bring about new players who are hungry to make stardom for themselves and represent their country and get Nigeria back to winning ways and one of the top teams in Africa again.
Yeah, I agree with you. But since you talk about new players, I know you probably need some time to think about this. But let me ask you: is there any player that you can think of from tip of your fingers that you can think of right about now that could make this team better? Are there any such players?
Well, it's not so new, but I think Victor Osimhen is the one for the future. Young guy who has done quite well for himself from 2015 at the under 17 days, doing excellently well for Napoli now, haven't struggled in his first season. We've seen him progress from Belgium to France and now in Italy. I'm hoping he's able to translate that on a consistent basis at the national team. I wasn't so pleased with the reintroduction of Odio Igalo, who said he's done with the national team, because I felt it was Osimhen's time to actually make that top striking role is right now. But the experience that Odio has had over the years to compare with the athleticism and the youth of Osimhen, who knows, might just about to bring up something for us eventually. If that team is built around Osimhen, and from what we've had in the middle of the park, will Wilfred Ndidi and maybe Ogene Karo, etc., because these guys are still young, I believe that they can actually do something for the national team eventually to make us maybe win our 4th AFCON title. But introducing, say, a very new set of players right now might not be the best, but we still have some players who are relatively new in the team and who can actually make the inclusions count eventually.
All right. Our party shot on the show, Kayode, I said earlier, a country versus club row is brewing between PSG and Argentina. Lionel Messi has been called into the Argentine squad for the FIFA World Cup qualifiers. He hasn't played for a while for PSG, and the sporting director of PSG has questioned the invitation of Lionel Messi into this squad. So, what do you think will happen in all of this? What do you think will transpire? Will he get Messi, or you think they're going to find a way to smoothen this out?
Well, if Messi is committed to the national team, there's nothing that the sporting director of PSG can do about it. It's the international break. And if his national team say they still need his input, and he's definitely bringing his A game whenever he's added to the team, then so be it.
All right.
But their concern at PSG is, would Messi be able to actually come back injury-free and give them the best based on what they expect of him? So it's in line, but I believe both club and country will be able to strike a balance eventually.
All right. I hope they will be able to do that. Kayode Ahmed, I want to thank you for your time on the show today. Hopefully we'll do this again next week.
Oh, thank you. Always a pleasure to be on the show.
All right. As our friend Kari Ahmed taking us through some of the sporting stories. All right, that's the show for today. Hope you've enjoyed everything we've been able to do. We're back here again tomorrow. I'm Amy Adebayo. Bye-bye now.